My beloved child, be still for a moment. Because something has been moving beneath the surface of your life, quietly, patiently, almost invisibly. You did not see it forming. You did not hear the conversations taking place behind closed doors. You did not witness the moments of silence that followed when your name entered a room unexpectedly. Yet all of it has been unfolding, piece by piece, while you continued walking through your days unaware. There is a reason this message has found you now. Not yesterday, not weeks ago, not at the beginning of this story. Now, because a shift has taken place. And what happened recently was not ordinary. Listen carefully. Someone connected to your heart stood among family members. Voices filled the room. Familiar laughter echoed through walls that had heard generations of stories before. Plates touched tables. Conversations crossed over one another. It looked like an ordinary gathering to anyone watching from the outside. But heaven noticed something different. Because there was one person in that room carrying a weight they had been hiding for far too long. A weight with your name on it. For a long time they had avoided saying certain things aloud. They spoke around their feelings. They disguised them. They redirected conversations. Whenever questions arose, they found ways to change the subject. Whenever family members became curious, they smiled and gave incomplete answers. Whenever your name surfaced unexpectedly, their heart reacted faster than their words. And some people noticed. More people noticed than they realized. Because feelings have a strange way of revealing themselves even when lips remain silent. You see, my child, there comes a moment when what is hidden becomes heavier than what is spoken. And that moment arrived. Not dramatically. Not with an announcement. Not with a grand display. It arrived quietly, the way many life-changing moments do. One question, one conversation, one unexpected pause. That was all it took. Something inside them shifted, and suddenly the walls they had spent so much time building no longer felt strong enough. Now stay with me, because this is where the story becomes deeper than anyone expected. The people around them believed they knew what was happening. Family members often think they can read situations clearly. They create conclusions. They make assumptions. They connect dots that were never meant to be connected. Some believed this person had moved on. Others believed they had forgotten. A few assumed there was nothing significant left in their heart. But assumptions are often the greatest distance between truth and understanding. And on this particular day, truth began pushing its way toward the surface. Slowly, patiently, unavoidably. At first it appeared through small reactions. A look, a hesitation, a change in tone. Nothing dramatic. Yet enough for certain people to notice. Enough for questions to begin forming. Enough for curiosity to grow. One relative spoke your name. Perhaps casually. Perhaps without knowing the impact it would create. But the atmosphere changed. The energy shifted. And suddenly there was silence where conversation had been. It lasted only a moment. Yet moments can reveal what years of explanations cannot. The silence said everything. The silence revealed what words had been hiding. And then came another question. A simple question. But sometimes simple questions unlock doors that have remained closed for years. Their heart began racing. Because deep inside, they knew they had reached a crossroads. Continue pretending. Or finally speak honestly. Continue protecting themselves. Or finally reveal what had been growing within them all this time. You may think the decision was easy. It was not. Because honesty can be terrifying when feelings run deep. Honesty removes the masks. Honesty exposes vulnerability. Honesty places the heart in open view. And that is exactly what began happening. Not all at once. Not immediately. But little by little. Word by word. Truth by truth. There are things they never intended to admit. things they planned to keep buried, things they convinced themselves would remain private forever. Yet something greater was moving. Heaven has a way of creating moments that cannot be postponed forever. And this was one of those moments. My child. Have you ever felt as though a river was building behind a dam? From the outside everything appears calm, but pressure continues growing, water continues rising, the structure continues straining, until eventually one small crack appears, then another, then another. That is what happened inside them. Years of emotions, months of reflection, countless memories, unspoken thoughts, questions they asked themselves late at night. All of it pressing against the barriers they had built. And then the crack appeared. A family member said something unexpected. No one planned it. No one rehearsed it. No one understood what it would trigger. But the moment arrived exactly when it was meant to. Their eyes lowered. Their breathing changed. And for the first time in a very long while, they stopped hiding. What came next surprised everyone, including them. Because when people finally speak from the heart, they often reveal more than they intended. The first words were cautious, measured, careful, yet genuine. And authenticity carries a power that cannot be ignored. The room felt different. People listened differently. The atmosphere itself seemed to lean closer. Because everyone sensed that something real was unfolding. Something important. Something that could not be taken back. And then your name entered the conversation again. This time differently. This time intentionally. This time with feeling. My child. What they said next was not what anyone expected. Not their family. Not the people sitting around them. Not even the person speaking. Because what emerged was not a rehearsed explanation. It was not a prepared speech. It was not something designed to impress anyone. It came directly from the deepest place within their heart. And once it began, it became impossible to stop. But before I reveal what happened next, understand this. What was spoken was not merely about attraction. It was not merely about affection. It was not merely about missing someone. It reached deeper than that. Much deeper. Because the truth they carried involved something they had only recently begun understanding themselves. A realization. A recognition. A discovery that had been forming quietly over time. Something about you. Something about your presence. Something about the way your existence had altered their life in ways they never expected. And when those words finally started coming out, even the people listening became emotional. Because authenticity has a way of touching every heart in the room. Even hearts that are not directly involved. The gathering that began as an ordinary family event was becoming something entirely different. A turning point. A revelation. A moment remembered long after the day itself ended. And what nobody realized was that this conversation was only the beginning. Because one person sitting in that room would later carry those words elsewhere. One person would repeat what they heard. One person would connect pieces that nobody else had connected. And when that happened, a much bigger truth would begin emerging. A truth involving you. A truth involving them. A truth that had been hidden for far longer than either of you realized. But that revelation had not happened yet. It was still approaching. Still forming. Still waiting just beyond the horizon. And what occurred after those first heartfelt words changed the direction of the entire gathering. Because someone asked a follow-up question. A question so unexpected that the entire room fell silent once again. And the answer they gave was the answer nobody was prepared to hear. To be continued. The silence that followed felt different. Not uncomfortable. Not forced. Not empty. It was the kind of silence that appears when people suddenly realize they are witnessing something genuine. The kind of silence that settles over a room when truth arrives without warning. No one interrupted. No one rushed to fill the space. Because the question that had just been asked lingered in the air like a doorway waiting to be opened. And the person connected to your heart stood right in front of that doorway. For a moment they looked down. Their fingers shifted nervously. Their eyes moved across familiar faces. Faces they had known for years. Faces that had watched them grow. Faces that believed they understood them. Yet none of those people knew the full story. Not really. Because there are certain journeys that happen entirely within the soul. Journeys nobody sees. Battles nobody hears. Realizations nobody witnesses. And that is where they had been living for longer than anyone realized. My child. The follow-up question seemed simple. But simple questions often uncover hidden worlds. Someone leaned forward and asked, if this person means so much to you, then why haven't you said all of this before? The room became still. Even the smallest sound seemed distant. And suddenly the answer mattered. Not because everyone was curious, but because everyone sensed there was more beneath the surface. Far more. Your person took a slow breath. A deeper breath than usual. The kind of breath someone takes when they know the next words could change how people see them forever. Then they spoke. Not loudly, not dramatically, but honestly. And honesty carries its own power. I was afraid. The words landed softly, yet their impact moved through the room immediately. Because nobody expected that answer. Not from them. Not after everything. Not after all the confidence they seemed to display. Not after all the times they acted as though nothing affected them. Afraid. That was the truth. A truth hidden beneath layers of appearances. And once that truth emerged, more followed. Because truth rarely arrives alone. It brings companions with it. I was afraid of being wrong. They paused. I was afraid of feeling something this deeply and finding out it wasn't real. Another pause. Longer this time. The room listened. Every heart attentive. Every eye focused. Because vulnerability has a way of commanding attention without ever raising its voice. Then they continued. I was afraid that if I admitted what I felt, I would have to face how much this person changed me. My child. Something shifted the moment those words were spoken. Even people who knew very little about you began understanding that this was not an ordinary connection. This was not a passing interest. This was not a temporary emotion. This was not someone casually talking about another person. This was someone revealing the impact another soul had left on their life. And that impact ran deeper than anyone expected. The conversation continued. Yet now every answer seemed to reveal another hidden layer. One family member asked when these feelings truly began. A reasonable question. A simple question. Yet the answer that followed surprised everyone again. Because your person did not mention a specific day. They did not mention a particular event. Instead they said something unexpected. I don't think it happened all at once. The room remained quiet. I think it happened slowly. They smiled faintly, almost as if they were remembering something. The way your presence affected a room. Not because you demanded attention, but because something about your energy stayed with them afterward. And as they spoke, a realization spread through the room. This wasn't admiration based on appearances. This wasn't infatuation. This wasn't fantasy. This was observation. Real observation. The kind that happens when someone genuinely pays attention. The kind that happens when a person occupies more space in your heart than you intended. And then something unexpected happened. One of the older family members spoke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. Yet their words changed everything. They said, "You've never talked about anyone like this before." The room became silent again. because everyone immediately realized it was true. No one could remember hearing them speak this way about anyone. Not once. Not ever. Your person lowered their eyes. And for the first time that evening, they didn't deny it. They didn't laugh it off. They didn't redirect the conversation. Instead they nodded. Slowly. Honestly. And that simple gesture revealed more than an hour of explanations could have. Because sometimes acceptance says more than words. Sometimes a nod carries an entire story inside it. My child. The atmosphere was changing now. The gathering no longer felt like a family event. It felt like a moment of revelation, as though something hidden was finally stepping into the light. And heaven was watching every second of it. Because there are moments when souls reach a point of readiness. A point where they can no longer continue pretending. A point where truth becomes stronger than fear. And that is exactly where your person had arrived. Yet what happened next would surprise everyone even more. Because another question emerged. A question nobody expected. A question that seemed innocent on the surface, but carried enormous weight underneath. Someone asked, "What makes this person different?" The room fell silent once more, and suddenly everything seemed to slow down. Even time itself felt different, because this question touched the center of everything. This question reached the heart of the matter. This question demanded clarity, not feelings, not confusion, not uncertainty, clarity. Your person sat quietly for several seconds, longer than before, much longer. As though searching for words capable of describing something difficult to explain. And when they finally answered, the room changed forever. Because they did not start by talking about what you looked like. They did not start by talking about attraction. They did not start by talking about romance. Instead they said something nobody expected. They make me want to become a better version of myself. The words echoed through the room. Simple, yet powerful. And suddenly people understood why this conversation felt different. Because shallow emotions rarely inspire transformation. Real connections do. The deepest connections do. The kind heaven quietly places in people's paths. The kind that awaken parts of the soul that have been sleeping. The kind that challenge comfort, challenge fear, challenge old identities. And that was exactly what they were describing. Then they continued. They make me think differently. Another pause. They make me see things differently. A deeper pause. And somehow, they make me believe I can become more than I am right now. My child. Nobody expected that answer. Not one person. Because everyone assumed this conversation was about feelings. Yet your person was describing growth, purpose, transformation, something much deeper than emotion alone. And that realization touched everyone present. Some people became emotional. Others became thoughtful. A few remained completely silent. But every single person recognized they were witnessing something real, something rare, something honest. Yet the biggest revelation had not arrived. Not yet, because while everyone focused on what your person was saying, someone else in the room was noticing something entirely different. A detail nobody else saw. A pattern nobody else recognized. A truth hidden between the words. This individual listened carefully, not just to what was being said, but to how it was being said. And suddenly a realization formed in their mind. A realization so unexpected that it sent a chill through them, because they began wondering if your person had only recently discovered the depth of these feelings themselves. Not months ago, not years ago, recently, very recently. And if that realization was correct, then something major was still unfolding, something unfinished, something moving toward a destination neither of you could yet see. The conversation continued, but heaven already knew what was approaching. A moment, a statement, a confession hidden inside another answer. And when it arrived, the entire room would fall silent once again, because your person was about to reveal the one thing they had never admitted before, not to their family, not to their friends, perhaps not even fully to themselves. And the moment those words left their mouth, nothing would feel the same afterward. To be continued. The room remained suspended in a strange kind of stillness, not because nobody had anything to say, but because everyone could feel that something important was approaching, like standing on the edge of a shoreline moments before a wave reaches the sand. You cannot see the full wave yet, but you know it is coming. That was the feeling surrounding your person. Every answer they gave seemed to uncover another layer. Every sentence pulled them closer to a truth they had spent so long avoiding. And somewhere deep inside, they knew it too. They could feel it. The familiar walls they had built over months, perhaps years, were beginning to crumble. Not violently, not dramatically, but steadily, one piece at a time. My child. There are moments when heaven allows a soul to reach the edge of its own honesty, moments when excuses lose their strength, moments when distractions stop working, moments when the heart becomes too full to remain silent. And this gathering had become one of those moments. The family members sitting around them no longer looked curious. Now they looked invested, concerned, interested, protective. Some of them exchanged glances, others remained completely focused, yet all of them sensed the same thing. There was still something unsaid, something bigger than everything that had already been revealed. And they were right, because the deepest truth had not yet surfaced, not even close. Your person sat quietly for a moment, almost as if they were debating whether to continue. Almost as if they had reached a point where turning back would be easier. But then something happened. A memory crossed their mind. A specific memory. Not one shared aloud. Not yet. But it changed everything. Their expression shifted. Their eyes softened. And suddenly the entire atmosphere around them felt different. One family member noticed immediately. "What are you thinking about?" The question came gently, without pressure, without judgment, yet the effect was immediate, because your person smiled. A small smile, the kind of smile that appears when someone remembers something meaningful, something precious, something they never expected to matter so much. And that smile told everyone more than they realized. It revealed that the story was not ending. It was only beginning. My child. The next words emerged slowly, carefully, as though each one carried weight, as though each one mattered, because they did. They said, there was a moment. Then they stopped. A long pause followed. The room leaned in, not physically, emotionally, every person waiting, every person listening. There was a moment when I realized this wasn't normal. The words immediately captured everyone's attention, because now they were no longer speaking in general terms. Now they were speaking about a turning point, a specific realization, a defining moment, and everyone wanted to know what happened. Even your person seemed surprised by how vividly they remembered it, because some memories refused to fade. Some moments leave fingerprints on the soul, and this was one of them. They continued. I remember walking away from a conversation. Another pause. I should have forgotten it. A faint laugh. It wasn't even a big moment. Their eyes lowered briefly, but I couldn't stop thinking about it afterward. The room remained silent, because everyone recognized that feeling. The strange way certain moments stay with us. The strange way certain people occupy our thoughts long after they are gone. The strange way ordinary experiences become unforgettable when the right person is involved. Your person looked toward the floor for a moment, almost reliving the memory. Then they said something that nobody expected. I realized I cared because I was paying attention to things I had no reason to notice. That statement hit differently, because it was true, deeply true. People notice what matters to them. They remember what matters to them. They revisit what matters to them. And your person had been doing all three, long before they admitted it, long before they understood it, long before they spoke it aloud. My child. Something was becoming clear now, not just to the family, to your person as well, because speaking honestly has a strange effect. It helps people hear themselves. It helps people understand things they have been avoiding. And as the conversation continued, your person began realizing the depth of their own feelings in real time. The gathering had become a mirror, and for the first time, they were truly looking. Then another family member asked a question that nobody expected, a question so direct that several people immediately turned to see how your person would respond. The question was simple, yet powerful. Do you love them? The room froze, completely, utterly, silently, and suddenly every previous question seemed small compared to this one. Because this question demanded something different. Not explanations, not stories, not observations, a decision, a truth, a declaration. For several seconds nobody moved, nobody spoke, even the air felt still. Your person looked away, then back again, and in that moment something extraordinary happened. The fear that had followed them throughout the entire conversation seemed to disappear. Not completely, but enough. Enough for honesty to step forward. Enough for truth to take its place. My child. Before answering, they took the deepest breath of the evening. A breath that seemed to carry months of emotion, months of confusion, months of resistance, months of unanswered questions. Then they finally spoke, and when they did, the room changed forever. They didn't answer immediately. Instead they said, "For a long time I kept trying to find another explanation." The family listened carefully. I told myself it was admiration. A pause. Then I told myself it was attachment. Another pause. Then I told myself it would pass. The room remained silent, every word landing deeper than the last. But none of those explanations worked. Their voice softened, because now they were no longer speaking to the room. In many ways, they were speaking to themselves, and perhaps to you. I kept waiting for the feeling to disappear. Another pause. It never did. The silence afterward felt enormous, because everyone knew what was coming. Everyone felt it. Everyone sensed the answer before it arrived. And then finally, the words emerged, quietly, honestly, without drama, without performance, without hesitation. Yes. A long silence followed. Then, "I love them, my child." The room stood still, not because people were shocked, but because the sincerity was impossible to ignore. This wasn't a declaration made for attention. This wasn't a dramatic confession. This was something far rarer. A truth finally spoken after being carried in silence for too long. And that truth touched everyone present. Some people smiled. Others looked emotional. A few exchanged knowing glances. Because suddenly many things made sense. Things they had noticed but never understood. Things they had observed but never questioned. Things that now fit together perfectly. Yet what happened next surprised everyone even more. Because after finally admitting the truth, your person didn't look relieved. They looked thoughtful, deeply thoughtful, as though another realization was forming, as though there was still something missing. And there was. Because admitting love was not the final revelation. Not even close. The deepest confession was still waiting, hidden behind everything else, waiting for the right moment, waiting for the right question, and heaven knew that question was Coming. Closer than anyone realized. Closer than your person realized. A question that would uncover not only what they felt, but why. A question that would reveal what truly frightened them. A question that would expose the secret they had protected for longer than anyone knew. And when that question finally arrived, the answer would leave the entire room speechless. Because your person was about to reveal something they had never admitted before. Not to family, not to friends, not even in their private thoughts. Something so honest that once it was spoken aloud, there would be no returning to the version of themselves that existed before this gathering began. And at that exact moment, someone sitting quietly across the room finally asked the question that changed everything. To be continued.